"Nobody wants a fat girl, sir, but I can tend the baby," the widower said. "Then stay." Two pale suns burned above the plains, and the wind carried red dust like smoke across miles of open land. People built their lives here with iron hands and stubborn hearts. They raised sky cattle that fed on tough alien grass. They drilled water from deep rock. They fixed broken machines with whatever scrap they could find. Caleb Ward lived 10 miles outside the small frontier town of Hollow Creek. His ranch was simple: a house made from old cargo panels, a small barn, a water tower, and a wide corral protected by a fence of metal poles. The place was quiet now, too quiet. It had not always been that way. A year ago, there had been laughter in the kitchen. A woman's voice calling him in from the yard, soft music from an old radio. Then came the mining accident on the ridge. A supply tunnel collapsed, and his wife, Eliza, never came home. Caleb did not talk about it much. People in town offered words, but words did not feed a baby at midnight. Words did not fix the lonely silence that filled the house after the lamps were turned off. His son, Owen, was only 8 months old. Caleb was a strong man, good with a rifle and a rope and a welding torch, but he was clumsy with warm bottles and tiny cries. Some nights, Owen cried for hours, and Caleb walked the floor until his arms ached. His eyes stayed heavy in the mornings. His work slowed. The ranch suffered. That morning, Caleb stood by the corral with Owen tied gently to his chest in a cloth sling. The baby's small head rested against Caleb's shirt. Caleb tried to mend a fence section that had bent during the last dust storm. Each time he lifted the welding tool, Owen kicked and fussed. The wind made Owen's eyes water, and his thin cry cut straight through Caleb's patience. "Easy," Caleb murmured, though he was not sure if he was talking to the baby or himself. He turned off the tool and walked Owen back inside. The house smelled like warm milk and metal oil. Caleb set Owen in a padded basket near the stove. Owen's face was red. His little hands opened and closed, searching for comfort. Caleb heated water, mixed formula, and checked the temperature like he had been taught. Owen took the bottle for 2 minutes, then pushed it away and began to cry again. Caleb stared at him, helpless. He had never admitted it out loud, but he needed help, real help. Not the kind that came as a quick visit and a sad look. A buzz sounded from the door panel. Caleb blinked, surprised. No one came out here without warning. He pressed the button and the door slid open. Outside stood Mrs. Harlow from town. She was a hard woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, always wrapped in a thick shawl even when the air was warm. Behind her was a young man with a wagon of supplies. "I brought your feed order," she said, "and I brought something else." Caleb stepped aside as they entered. Owen's crying softened but did not stop. Mrs. Harlow looked around the house. Her eyes went to the unwashed bottle on the counter, then to the pile of torn work gloves near the chair. "You're running yourself into the ground," she said. "I'm fine," Caleb answered, though his voice sounded tired. Mrs. Harlow made a sound like she did not believe him. "There's a hiring caravan in town today. Folks looking for work. You should come." "I don't have money for extra hands," Caleb said. "You don't have money for losing your ranch either," she nodded at Owen. "And the boy needs steady care." Caleb's jaw tightened. He did not like being judged, but deep down he knew she was right. Mrs. Harlow laid the feed invoice on the table. "Come by the town hall after lunch." "At least look, that's all." She left without waiting for a promise. Her steps were firm, like she owned the world. Caleb stared at the door after it closed. Owen's crying slowed into soft hiccups. Caleb picked him up, rocking gently. "All right," Caleb whispered. "We'll go look." By midday, the dust storm had calmed. Caleb drove his old hover wagon into Hollow Creek. The town was small, built along a dry riverbed with buildings made of stone and ship metal. A water pump stood in the center like a monument. A few people moved about, but most were gathered near the town hall where the hiring caravan had arrived. Caleb parked and carried Owen in his sling. The baby's eyes were wide, taking in the strange sounds and faces. Caleb felt awkward in crowds now. He had used to be social. He used to smile easily. The loss had closed him like a fist. Inside the town hall, tables were set up in rows. A caravan leader sat with a data pad, checking names and skills. Ranchers stood nearby, looking workers over like buyers at a livestock auction. Some workers stood straight and confident. Others looked nervous, shoulders drawn in. Caleb stayed near the back at first, watching. He heard the questions. "Can you ride? Can you repair engines? Can you handle a rifle? You ever worked off-world?" Strong men were chosen quickly. A tall woman with a mechanic's badge got hired on the spot. A young man with quick hands and a steady gaze went next. Each time someone was picked, the crowd shifted and the unchosen stepped farther to the side. Caleb's eyes drifted to the far wall. There stood a woman alone. She was not tall. Her body was soft and heavy and her clothes looked worn but clean. A simple scarf covered her hair. Her hands were clasped in front of her and her eyes stayed low, like she was trying to become invisible. People passed her without stopping. A rancher glanced at her and smirked. Another worker whispered something to a friend and both laughed quietly. The woman's shoulders tensed, but she did not move. Caleb felt a small sting in his chest. He had seen this kind of look before, people deciding someone's worth before hearing a single word. Owen shifted in the sling and made a small sound. The woman lifted her head for just a second and looked at the baby. Her expression changed, softening in a way that made her face seem brighter. She smiled a little, then quickly looked down again as if she had done something wrong. Caleb found himself walking toward her before he fully understood why. Up close, he saw tiredness in her eyes, not laziness, not weakness. The tiredness of someone who had carried too much alone. She noticed him and froze. Caleb cleared his throat. "You here for work?" "Yes, sir," she said softly. Her voice was careful, like she expected a harsh reply. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mara," she said. "Mara L." Caleb nodded. "What kind of work can you do?" Mara hesitated. Her gaze flicked to the ranchers across the room. The laughter had stopped, but the judgment remained. She swallowed and spoke quickly, as if trying to get the words out before she lost courage. "People don't want a woman like me," she said. "They think I'm slow or weak. They think I take too much space." Her cheeks turned red. "But I can work, sir. I can cook, clean, mend clothes, and I can tend a baby." Caleb's eyes went to Owen. The baby was watching Myra, calm now, almost curious. Myra noticed and added in a small rush, "I raised my little brothers back on my old colony. I know how to warm bottles, calm crying, keep a child safe. I know how to make a home feel steady." Her words hit Caleb like water in the desert. Steady, safe. Those were exactly the things his life lacked. A rancher nearby snorted. "You, baby work." "Ranch work?" The man shook his head. "Caleb, don't waste your time." Caleb turned to look at him. "I didn't ask you." The rancher raised his hands in a false peace and stepped away, still smiling like he knew better. Mara's eyes widened. She looked surprised that Caleb had defended her at all. Caleb asked, "Do you have a place to stay tonight?" Mara shook her head. "No, sir. I was going to sleep by the freight crates, if they allow it." Caleb felt a hard knot of anger at the world that made people live like that. He looked down at Owen. The baby's fingers reached toward Mara's scarf like he wanted to touch it. Mara smiled again, gentle this time. She did not reach out. She waited, respectful. Caleb thought of the long nights, the cold kitchen, the broken fence, the silence. He thought of Owen's cries and his own tired hands. He made a decision that felt sudden but also strangely right. "I need help at my ranch," Caleb said. "Mostly with the baby, some housework, maybe light tasks outside if you can manage them." Mara's breath caught. You're serious?" "Yes," Caleb said, "if you're willing." Mara's eyes shone, but she held herself steady. "I'm willing, sir. I'll do my best. I won't cause trouble." Caleb nodded once. "You don't have to call me sir. Name S. Caleb." Mara blinked. "Caleb," she repeated like she was tasting the sound. Caleb shifted Owen higher in the sling. "If you come, there are rules. The ranch is quiet, no stealing, no lies, and the baby comes first." Mara nodded quickly. "Of course, baby first." The caravan leader called out another name, but Caleb was no longer listening. He looked at Mara and saw not a burden but a chance. A small, fragile chance to survive this new life without breaking. He hesitated for half a second, then said the words that would change more than just his ranch. "Then stay," he said. "At least for now, we'll see how it goes." Mara's shoulders trembled. She pressed a hand to her chest as if she needed to hold herself together. "Thank you," she whispered. "I won't forget this." Caleb didn't answer with fancy words. He only nodded and turned toward the door. Outside, the wind had softened and the two suns hung high and bright. Hollow Creek was still the same judgmental town. Red Mesa was still the same harsh world. But as Mara walked beside Caleb, a single step behind, Caleb felt something he had not felt in a long time. Not happiness yet, but the beginning of relief. And in Owen's quiet, steady breathing, Caleb heard the first hint of peace returning to his home. Red Mesa looked different during the evening ride back from town. The red dust glowed softly under the twin suns as they lowered toward the horizon. Caleb drove the old hover wagon slowly so Owen would not wake. The baby slept quietly against his chest, his tiny fingers curled around Caleb's shirt. Mara sat beside him, holding her small travel bag tightly in her lap. She watched the land with wide eyes. Endless plains stretched in every direction, broken only by rock formations and small patches of silver grass that shimmered under the light. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Caleb nodded. "It can be when the storms stay away." She smiled faintly. There was something peaceful about the open space, something honest. No crowded cities, no judging eyes everywhere, just wind, sky, and silence. As they reached the ranch, Mara stared at the simple home made from old cargo panels and metal sheets. It wasn't fancy, but it felt solid. The barn stood strong beside it, and a water tower rose behind like a quiet guardian. Caleb parked and stepped down, adjusting Owen carefully. Myra followed, looking unsure of where to stand. "You can look around," Caleb said. "No need to be nervous." "I'm not nervous," she said quickly, then paused. "Maybe a little." Caleb almost smiled. Inside, the house felt warm from the sun heating the walls. Myra noticed small details immediately: tools left on the table, bottles stacked unevenly, blankets folded but not properly placed. The place wasn't dirty, just tired, like someone trying hard but always running out of time. Owen woke as they entered and let out a small cry. Myra instinctively stepped closer but stopped herself. "May I?" she asked gently. Caleb hesitated only for a moment before nodding. He carefully handed the baby to her. Myra held Owen with surprising confidence. Her movements were slow and steady. She adjusted him against her shoulder and hummed softly. The sound was simple but soothing, like a quiet melody from long ago. Owen's crying stopped almost immediately. Caleb blinked, shocked. "He doesn't usually calm down that fast." Myra smiled shyly. "Sometimes babies just need a different rhythm." She walked slowly around the room, humming, and Owen watched her with curious eyes. Caleb felt a strange mix of relief and disbelief. For the first time in weeks, the house felt less tense. "Kitchen there," he said after a moment. "Bedroom down the hall, you can use the spare room, it's small." "It's more than enough," Mara said quickly. She placed Owen gently into his basket after he settled. Then, without being asked, she began organizing the bottles on the counter. Her movements were efficient but careful, as if she didn't want to overstep. Caleb watched quietly. He wasn't used to sharing space anymore, but instead of feeling uncomfortable, he felt lighter. That night, Mara cooked a simple meal using supplies she found in the kitchen. Nothing fancy, just warm stew and fresh bread heated in the oven. Caleb realized he had not eaten a proper meal in days. "This is good," he said after a few bites. Mara's face lit up with quiet pride. After dinner, Caleb went outside to check the animals while Mara stayed with Owen. The sky turned deep purple as the suns disappeared. The wind carried distant sounds across the plains. When Caleb returned, he heard soft laughter from inside. He froze near the door, surprised. Owen rarely laughed. Peeking inside, he saw Mara sitting on the floor with the baby, making small, funny sounds and moving a cloth toy in front of him. Owen giggled, his tiny hands reaching out. Caleb felt something warm in his chest, something he had missed without realizing it. Myra looked up and noticed him watching. She quickly stopped, worried she had done something wrong. "I'm sorry," she said. "Was I too loud?" "No," Caleb said quickly. "It's good." She relaxed slightly. Days passed and a new routine formed. Myra woke early, fed Owen, and kept the house running smoothly. She repaired torn clothes with careful stitches. She cleaned tools and organized supplies in ways Caleb had never thought of. Outside, she helped with light tasks. Though she was not fast, she was determined. She asked questions about the ranch, learning quickly. One afternoon, Caleb noticed something strange. The skittish sky cattle that usually avoided strangers stood calmly near Mara as she worked near the fence. "They don't trust people easily," Caleb said. Mara shrugged. "Animals know when someone means no harm." Her words stayed with him. Slowly, the town's whispers reached the ranch. Some neighbors stopped by, pretending to check on Caleb but really wanting to see the woman he had brought home. One man shook his head after leaving. "You sure about this?" he asked Caleb quietly. "People like her, they slow you down." Caleb felt irritation rise. "She's helping more than anyone else has." The man only shrugged and walked away. Inside, Mara pretended she hadn't heard, but Caleb noticed her shoulders stiffen. That evening, as they sat outside watching the stars appear, Caleb spoke. "You don't have to listen to what people say." Mara looked at the ground. "I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be." She gave a small, sad smile. "Maybe. But life doesn't always give what people deserve." Silence settled between them, comfortable rather than heavy. Suddenly, a distant explosion echoed across the plains. Both of them stood at once. A faint glow appeared near the horizon, smoke rising from another ranch. Caleb's expression turned serious. "That's North Ridge." "Is it dangerous?" Mara asked. "Could be raiders," he said quietly. The word hung in the air like a shadow. Caleb grabbed his rifle and looked at Owen sleeping peacefully inside. For a moment, fear crossed his face, fear of losing another home, another family. Mara stepped closer. "Go," she said softly. "Help them. I will stay here with the baby." He hesitated. "You sure?" She nodded, calm and steady. "I'll keep him safe." Caleb looked into her eyes and saw no fear, only determination. He mounted his hoverbike and rode into the night, dust trailing behind him. Mara watched until he disappeared, then turned back toward the house. The quiet ranch suddenly felt very large. She checked every door, every window. Then she walked to her small travel bag, hesitated, and slowly opened it. Inside were tools unlike anything Caleb owned, advanced devices, compact and precise. She touched one gently, her expression serious. Outside, the wind picked up again, and far across the plains, unknown eyes watched the ranch under the rising stars. The wind grew stronger after Caleb left the ranch. Dust moved across the plains like slow waves, covering the ground in red shadows. Mara stood at the doorway for a long moment, watching the direction where Caleb had disappeared. The quiet felt heavier now. Inside, Owen slept peacefully, unaware of danger or fear. Mara walked slowly toward him and checked the blanket around his small body. His soft breathing made her feel calm. "You are safe," she whispered. But even as she said it, her eyes moved toward the window. Something in the air felt wrong. She stepped outside again and listened carefully. Red Mesa usually carried sounds far, the cry of distant animals, the hum of machines, even the faint noise of hover engines from miles away. Tonight, there was too much silence. Mara walked toward her bag near the table. She opened it carefully and took out one of the small devices hidden inside. It looked like a simple metal disc, but faint lights moved across its surface. She activated it. A quiet pulse spread outward, scanning the area. Her face grew serious. Movement detected, not animals. Machines. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing slowly. The past she had tried to leave behind was coming closer. Outside, far across the plains, faint lights moved low to the ground. Raider bikes. Myra moved quickly now. She closed all shutters and turned off the outside lights. The ranch fell into darkness except for a soft lamp near Owen's basket. She picked up the baby gently and held him close. Owen stirred but did not cry. "SHH," she whispered softly, rocking him. Minutes passed slowly. Then she heard it, the distant hum of engines. 3 bikes stopped somewhere beyond the fence. Mara's heart beat faster, but her hands stayed steady. She placed Owen into a carrying sling against her chest so she could move freely. Footsteps approached. A voice called out from the darkness. "Ranch owner, we know someone's home." Mara stayed silent. The voice laughed softly. "We're not here to cause trouble, just looking around." She knew better. Raiders rarely came without a reason. One of them moved closer to the fence. Metal clanged softly as they tested its strength. Mara stepped toward the wall and pressed a hidden switch on the device she carried. A faint blue light spread across the fence lines. Old defense systems buried under the ground activated quietly, systems left by early settlers long ago but forgotten by most. She had repaired them during the past week while Caleb worked, using skills she never talked about. The raider touched the fence. A harmless but strong shock ran through it. He jumped back with a shout. "Something's wrong," another voice said. Myra stayed inside, silent and still. The raiders circled the ranch slowly, searching for weak points. One walked toward the barn. Another aimed a small scanner toward the house. Myra watched through a small gap in the shutter. Fear tried to rise inside her, but she pushed it away. Fear had controlled too much of her life already. She pressed another button. Small lights turned on near the barn, creating the illusion that someone else stood there holding a weapon. The raiders froze. "Owner's armed," one muttered. "Or someone else is here," another replied. They moved back, uncertain. Suddenly, a distant sound cut through the night, the roar of an approaching engine. "Caleb," the raiders turned toward the sound. Caleb's hoverbike appeared through the dust, moving fast. "Time to go," the leader said. The bikes lifted and sped away across the plains just as Caleb arrived. He jumped off his bike, rifle ready. "Mara," he called. "I'm here," she answered, opening the door carefully. Caleb rushed inside and checked Owen first, relief clear on his face when he saw the baby safe. "What happened?" he asked. "Raiders came," she said calmly. "They did not enter." Caleb looked around, noticing the active defense lights and the faint hum of systems he thought were broken. "You fixed these?" he asked, surprised. Mara hesitated. She had tried to hide her abilities, afraid they would push people away, but there was no point hiding now. "Yes," she said quietly. "I know how to repair old systems." Caleb nodded slowly, impressed rather than angry. "You saved the ranch." She looked down. "I just did what needed to be done." He studied her face for a moment. There were questions in his eyes, but he didn't push. Outside, the storm began to grow. Red dust lifted into the air, spinning faster and faster. "Storm's coming," Caleb said. "We need to secure everything." They worked together through the night. Mara moved quickly despite her size, tying ropes, locking gates, and guiding animals into shelter. Caleb watched her with new respect. She was not slow or weak. She was careful and strong in her own way. As the storm hit, wind screamed across the plains. Sand struck the walls like rain. Inside, they sat near the stove while Owen slept between them. Caleb broke the silence first. "Those raiders, they weren't just passing by." Mara's hands tightened slightly. "They were searching," she said quietly. "For what?" Caleb asked. She took a deep breath. "For someone like me." Caleb waited, giving her space. "I used to work for a corporation," she said slowly. "They built weapons and systems for frontier worlds. I repaired machines. But they wanted to use technology to control settlements, not protect them. When I refused, they erased my record and left me behind." Caleb listened carefully. "They told others I was useless," she continued. "Unwanted. That way no one would help me." Silence filled the room. Caleb finally said, "They were wrong." Mara looked up, surprised. "You're not useless," he said simply. "You proved that tonight." Her eyes softened, and for the first time since arriving, she looked truly at peace. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the ranch there was warmth and quiet. Caleb leaned back in his chair, exhaustion finally catching him. "You belong here," he said softly. Mara didn't answer right away, but in her heart something shifted. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was not just surviving. She was becoming part of something. And somewhere beyond the storm, unseen enemies were still watching, waiting for the right moment to return. The storm passed during the night, leaving the plains quiet and cold under the morning light. Red dust covered everything, the fences, the barn roof, even the windows of the ranch house. The sky looked clean again, but the air still felt heavy, as if danger had not fully left. Caleb woke early, as he always did. For a moment he forgot about the raiders and the storm. Then the memory returned, sharp and clear. He sat up slowly and looked toward the small basket where Owen slept peacefully. Mara was already awake. She stood near the window, watching the horizon carefully. The soft morning light touched her face, and for the first time Caleb noticed strength in her posture that he had missed before. She wasn't just a quiet helper, she was a survivor. "You didn't sleep," Caleb said. She turned slightly. "A little." "I wanted to make sure everything stayed safe." Caleb nodded. "You did more than that last night." Mara lowered her eyes. Compliments still made her uncomfortable. Outside, the ranch looked calm, but Caleb knew calm could be temporary. Raiders did not give up easily, especially if they were searching for someone specific. "We should check the fences," he said. "I'll come with you," Mara answered. They stepped outside together. The air felt fresh after the storm. Birds circled above, and the sky cattle moved slowly across the field unharmed. Caleb inspected the fence where the raiders had approached. The defense system glowed faintly along the metal posts. "You really fixed this," he said quietly. Mara nodded. "Old technology is easier to repair than new systems. People just forget how." Caleb smiled slightly. "Maybe I should let you fix everything around here." She laughed softly, surprised by his humor. As they walked back toward the house, a distant engine sound reached their ears. Caleb's body tensed immediately. Another vehicle approached from the horizon, larger than a hoverbike. Dust trailed behind it like a cloud. Myra felt her stomach tighten. "They came back." Caleb grabbed his rifle. "Stay inside with Owen." But Myra didn't move. "If they are looking for me, hiding will not stop them." Caleb met her eyes. There was no fear there now, only quiet determination. The vehicle stopped near the outer fence. 3 figures stepped out, dressed differently from the raiders. Their clothes were cleaner, their movements more controlled. Corporate agents. Myra's breath slowed as memories returned, long corridors, cold voices, orders she refused to follow. One of the agents activated a speaker. "Myra L.," the voice said calmly. "You are requested to return. Resistance is unnecessary." Caleb stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of her. "She's not going anywhere," he said. The agent tilted his head. "This is not your concern, rancher. She belongs to our organization." Mara felt anger rise. For years, people had spoken about her like she was an object, something owned. "No," she said firmly, stepping beside Caleb. "I do not belong to you." The agents exchanged glances. "You signed a contract," the speaker replied. "You are obligated to return." Myra shook her head. "I refused your orders because they were wrong. I will not help you control innocent people." The leader's tone became colder. "Then you leave us no choice." The agents moved forward. Caleb raised his rifle. "Take one more step and you'll regret it." Silence fell over the ranch. The wind moved through the dry grass, carrying dust between them. Suddenly, another sound came from behind: engines. Several hoverbikes approached from the direction of Hollow Creek. Townspeople arrived, including Mrs. Harlow and other ranchers. They stopped behind Caleb and Mara, forming a quiet line of support. Mrs. Harlow spoke loudly. "This woman defended this ranch last night. She defended our town. She stays." The agents looked around, realizing they were outnumbered. "This settlement does not understand the consequences," the leader said. Caleb answered calmly, "We understand enough." Mara felt something break open inside her, not fear but belonging. These people who once judged her now stood beside her. The agents hesitated. Without force, their mission became complicated. Finally, the leader lowered his hand. "This is not finished," he said. "We will report your refusal." "You do that," Caleb replied. The agents returned to their vehicle and left without another word. The moment they disappeared over the horizon, the tension faded like a storm moving away. Mara's legs felt weak and she sat down slowly on the steps. Caleb knelt beside her. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, though tears filled her eyes. "I thought I would always be running." Caleb shook his head. "Not anymore." Mrs. Harlow approached and gave Myra a firm nod. "You proved yourself. That's enough for us." Other townspeople agreed quietly. The feeling of acceptance settled over the ranch like warm sunlight. Later that evening, after everyone left, Caleb and Myra sat outside watching the sunset. Owen slept between them, wrapped in a soft blanket. The sky turned gold and orange. Caleb spoke first. "You don't have to leave if you don't want to." Myra looked at him carefully. "Are you sure? I don't want to bring danger to you." "Danger finds us anyway," he said with a small smile. "But good people are rare." She felt warmth spread through her chest. "I was always told nobody wanted someone like me," she admitted quietly. Caleb looked at her directly. "They were wrong." Silence followed, but it was peaceful. After a long moment, he said softly, "You helped this house feel alive again. Owen needs you, and I think I do too." Myra's eyes widened slightly. She wasn't used to hearing such honest words. The wind moved gently around them, carrying the smell of earth and grass. She looked at the ranch, the barn, the open plains, and finally at Caleb. "If you still want me to stay," she said slowly. He nodded. "Then stay," he said again, just like the first day, but now the words carried deeper meaning. Mara smiled, not shy this time, but strong. The twin suns disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving stars scattered across the sky. The ranch stood quiet and safe, filled with new hope. A widower who found strength again. A woman who finally found a place where she belonged. And a small baby who would grow up surrounded by courage, kindness, and a family built not by blood but by choice. And on Red Mesa, where survival was never easy, that was more powerful than anything.